Okay, I think now it is a live stream. You can start, Mahalingam. I'll just introduce Mahalingam to maybe our Ranjit, Mr. Ranjit and others. Dr. Mahalingam, he did PhD from JNU and did on diaspora, Tamils in Malaysia, and he did a in-depth interview and field work for, I think, more than 5 years. After that, he has been regularly publishing in this area, and he worked as a freelancer journalist, and now he's associate professor at Global, what is it, Mahalingam, that university?
SGT University, sir. SGT.
SGT University in Gurgaon. So over to you, Mahalingam, and this is a very important, West Asian diaspora is a very important topic, because as Indians are going to GCC country, you have seen the West Asian people are also going to many other countries. So today, Dr. Mahalingam will speak in detail. So over to you, Dr. Mahalingam.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sahu. I think I'm audible to all of you. It's nice to see you all back again. I'm just dealing today the West Asian diaspora. This is a region which is very close to India. We have a lot of connections, cultural connections and all that, political connections, and also a lot of impact on India. That's so basically, I'm not talking about Indian diaspora in West Asia, but I'm talking about West Asian diaspora, how they are migrating, from where they are migrating to, and I'm not going to discuss about the identity or issues or other sociological aspect. I'm going to speak about just migration, a migration pattern of this West Asian diaspora. That's what basically I'm going to discuss about the profile of this West Asian diaspora. That is what we are going to focus on today. See the slides. The first slide says, see, the West Asian diaspora includes Jewish diaspora, Arab diaspora, Turkish diaspora, Iranian diaspora, and Kurdish diaspora. Right? The focus here is mainly migration patterns, their population size, and geographical dispersion. Regional distribution of these diasporas in various parts of the world. That Jewish diaspora is the oldest diaspora in the world, and also the term diaspora was first applied on the Jewish experience of exile. That's what the term started with, referring to them, and now the diaspora is being used to all the migrants. Whether the Jewish or Iranian or Indian or Chinese. Today the term is widely used by the scholars to understand the experience of the migrants. The West Asian context, very well. West Asia is a very volatile, politically volatile region. There are a lot of civil wars, conflicts. So apart from voluntary migration, there is forced migration from this region. And also historically, this region has been witnessing migration to different parts of the world, to the West as well as to the Gulf countries. That's what, this area is basically, okay, known for. West Asia means you think of, like, of course, what comes to your mind? Israeli and Palestine issue, which is still a burning issue, and also like this Kurdistan movement, and in Iran revolution. So a lot of civil wars. This area is known for its own tensions, political tensions and political instability. That is what makes people to move out from this region, West Asia. That's what we are going to discuss today. Okay, so it's clear now. I think what I'm going to speak today, lecture on this particular areas like migration patterns, population size, and where they spread across in this from this region to other parts of the world. That's what my focus is going to be. Okay, see, this is what the map of Israel. The Jewish diaspora is the oldest known diaspora in the world, and it's the best documented one. And also, they have a long history of living outside the country. Because you know that the exile lasted for 2000 years. Okay, they faced, what should I say, that post migration from their homeland, and they recreated their homeland, all that. See, the Roman Empire, they attacked, they captured this Constantinople and all. Afterwards, this, capturing of this region, and the Jews were forced to migrate. And again, in 1948, Jewish diaspora recreated their homeland called Israel. Okay, so that's what. See, the destruction of their temple in 17C. What is C? Christian era. Okay, during this Roman rule. And the second exile lasted for about 2000 years. So the promised land, the Jews diaspora, they scattered across Europe and other parts of the world, and later they created their homeland. Okay, they created their homeland, which is known as Israel today. So during the exile, most of the Jews lived in Asia and Europe. Even they came to Asia, they came to India also. Okay, so during that migration. In 1880 CE, the total Jewish population of 7.7 million, about 85%, 86% were concentrated in Europe. So mostly they went to Europe. Okay, they were living there. You know that Second World War time, what problem they all faced, from the rule of Hitler, all that. In 1939, the total Jewish population was 16.2 million. You see the increase of population. Okay, the European, share declined to about 5.7, mainly on account of migration to Americas. From Europe, they migrated to Americas. America means which includes North America and South America. Okay, the Holocaust, the mass killing of Jews by the Nazis in Europe during Second World War reduced the world population of Jews into 11 million in 1945, from 16 million to 11 million. Okay, 5 million were, they faced this Nazism, and because of that, the number reduced. Then Zionist movement in Europe and Jewish diaspora global lobbying resulted in the establishment of the state of Israel. The Zionist movement, which really pushed the agenda of creating their own homeland, Israel. Okay, this Jewish diaspora is a successful one, like Chinese one. The Israel is a very prosperous nation and known worldwide because of Jewish diaspora's role is very much, significant. Okay, they factored in creating their new homeland and also making their homeland well known in this world, well known to the world. Okay, that is what the contribution of the Jewish diaspora. Then migration to Palestine was described by the Zionists as Aliyah, going up a spiritual journey. Okay, the 7 Aliyah brought the Jews back to the Israel, from 1880 to 1948. Many Israeli Jews came back. Many Jews came back to Israel, During next 2.5 years, 685,000 Jews immigrated to Israel, okay, doubling the Jewish population in the country, returned back to their land. Okay, since late 19th century, the Jewish immigration into Israel has been continuing, bringing the total population of Israel to more than 9 million today. Okay, still they are returning to Israel and working for the development of Israel. Okay, that is what you have to understand. So what I try to tell you, see, for example, in 1960s, the distribution of Jewish population, you look at the table, just you can zoom it. You can zoom and see, for example, in Americas, 50% they were living, in Europe, 29% they were living, and Middle East, Middle East, they were including Israel, 19.9%. But in 82, you look at the year 82, Americas 50%, Europe 22%, then Israel 26%, see the increase, and also rest of the world 2%. Okay, in the early 1980s, there were about 74% of the total population lived in diaspora. So most of them, they lived in diaspora. The Jews, most of them, they lived in diaspora because of the long migration history. And the remaining 26 only, they were living in Israel, in their homeland. In 2018, the world core Jewish population was 14.6 million, of which 30% lived in Israel and the rest in the diaspora. So there is an increase of going back to their homeland. At the same time, they all, the remaining 80% were, still they are, 70%, not 80, 70% still they are in diaspora, they're living in diaspora. See, from 19% to 26%, then they with 30%, they come back to Israel. Okay, that is the, so it means there's a return migration of Jews to their homeland. That also is very important point to understand. And also still, most of the Jews are living in Israel. Sorry, living in diaspora. Living in diaspora. This is what Jewish diaspora. So what are the takeaways from this particular segment of Jewish diaspora? One is the Jewish diaspora is still very active. They are engaged with their homeland, and also they are living in diaspora. Most of them are 70% are living in diaspora. The remaining 30% are living in Israel. There is increase of return migration to Israel. That is a very important, takeaway point for you. It's really interesting. They're going back to Israel to work for the growth and glory of Israel. That is what we should keep in mind. Then going back to next one, the Arab diaspora. The Arab diaspora is very, broad term, which includes many diaspora: Palestine, Syrian, Lebanese diaspora, North African diaspora, which includes Egyptian diaspora, all that. Unlike the Jews diaspora, the Arab diaspora is not clearly defined. Okay, it's a very ambiguous term. Okay, at least 20 Arab countries are part of this Arab diaspora. Okay, but here we are taking few case studies. We are not covering all the Arab diaspora. Okay, so first, particularly, in fact, more than not, the Arab diasporas are perceived as what even a bigger category, that is a Muslim diaspora. Okay, the Palestinians, the Syrian, the Lebanese, the Maghrebi, and Egyptian diasporas stand out prominently. Among the Arab diaspora, these diasporas are very significant. Okay, the diasporas which I've just now, told you, they are very significant. They're very prominent for various reasons. I'm going to tell those reasons why they're very prominent. Okay, so Arab diaspora is a, huge, like bigger category, including 20 countries. But only we are taking few important Arab diasporas. One among them is Palestinian diaspora. See, Palestinian diaspora has been into, making of, for 70 years now. It's a new diaspora, unlike the Jewish diaspora, which is old one, but Palestinian diaspora is a new, it's a byproduct of the political developments in Palestine, which has led to the migration of Palestinians into different parts of the world. It is one of the direct byproduct of the establishment of State of Israel. The Palestine-Israel conflict, the conflict between these two countries, have led to, the forced migration of Palestinians into various parts of the world. So let's see. See, as I said in the beginning, we are going to discuss only the population size, migration patterns, and where they are located. That's all. It's a very factual kind of lecture. I'm not going to discuss about what kind of challenges they face and what kind of identity they are maintaining. All those things, we are not going to discuss today. Just it's a factual lecture based on facts. Okay. Of 1.32 million Palestinians in the world is 1949, about 80% resided within the former boundaries of Palestine. Okay, the former boundaries, which includes the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Israel. Okay, that is what the old Palestine, which was ruled by the British for some time. I mean, so boundaries of mandatory Palestine. About 80% of the neighboring countries of Lebanon, where these Palestinians live, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, where they migrated, including Egypt and Iraq, where they are more in numbers. The dispersion of Palestinians are very progressive over the decades. 1970s, more Palestinians were living in diaspora. That is, 54% of the Palestinians are living in diaspora than Palestine, which is 46%. Okay, still, it's a very higher. Almost half of the populations are living in diaspora. They're not living in their own homeland because of this political conflict between the protracted, or you can say prolonged, conflict between Israel and Palestine. Okay, so Lebanon has 1 lakh Palestinians. Jordan has 70,000 Palestinians. Syria has 70,000 Palestinians. Neighboring countries like, the neighboring countries, the Palestine has 18% of the, Palestinians. And see, coming to the migration of Palestinian Gulf countries, you can see them in Gulf countries like, if you go to Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia or Qatar or, Kuwait, all these countries, you find Palestinians more also visible. See, for example, Kuwait crisis also has impacted them, but still it's a very favorite attraction for Palestinians to move into Kuwait or Gulf countries. They played a very important role in the field of education, agriculture, public administration in Gulf countries. The distribution of the total Palestinian populations estimated at 6.7 million in 1995, where they are West Bank and East Jerusalem, 18%, Gaza Strip, that is 11%, Israel, where 12%, Jordan, where 32%, Lebanon, 6%, Syria, 5%, Arab states, 8%, rest of the world, 7%. This is what the population size is, distribution of the Palestine diaspora across the world. Okay, then moving into next, Syrian and Lebanese diaspora. Okay, so what you can learn from this Palestinian diaspora, they are scattered in neighboring countries, particularly Gulf countries, and few are living in Europe, other countries. Okay, but not, they're not like Jews. Jews are scattered all over the world because it's a old diaspora, long migration history. Unlike Palestinians, they are moving out since last 70 years. Okay, due to this creation of Israel in 1948. Okay, it's a very let's say short history of migration for Palestinians, but they are not migrating to Europe or Americas in large number, but just they are migrating to neighboring countries. That's all, and they live in Israel also. Few of them. Okay, coming to Syrians and Lebanese diaspora, which are also part of Arab diaspora. Okay, these two diasporas are also very significant because of they are known for their trade and commerce and the very significant role they play in their region. Syrian and Lebanese have a history of about century of overseas migration. They have a long migration history. Migrants of both these nationalities have traveled extensively abroad because their French connections has particularly facilitated to migrate to Francophone countries in North Africa or West Africa, Europe. The late 19th and early 20th century, a large number of Syrians, Syria also having what civil war, they had a civil war from 2011. Okay, so they many migrated to Americas as well. In 1940s, there were more than 206,000 Americans of Syrian origin or parentage. So Syrians, they are very, have a long history of migration. They migrated to Americas as well. Unlike the Palestinians, they are migrating to near neighboring countries. There were 135 Arabic-speaking people, mostly of Syrian and Lebanese origin in Argentina, Brazil, so Mexico, these countries, they have the Syrian Lebanese diaspora. In 1953, the number of Syrians and Lebanese in the Americas was estimated to be 810,000, of which 650,000 were living in Brazil and Argentina. Okay, so the Syrians and Lebanese diasporas, they have a long migration history. They went to Americas in 1940s, and they proved themselves in trade and commerce in this region. Okay, particularly Central America, like Mexico, Argentina, North America, and also South America, these countries where they are scattered across. In the mid 1970s, over 1.5 million Lebanese and Syrians were thought to have immigrated. Okay, these figures include migration to the Gulf countries as well. They are attracted to large number of Arabs in the Gulf countries. They also played very important role for the oil, economies of the Gulf region. Okay, Syrians and Lebanese. Lebanese are very known for trade, like Chinese. They are trade diaspora. In 1980, there were 84,000 workers of Syrian origin in Libya, Iraq, and Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Lebanon had 62,000 workers in these countries. Okay, so likewise, they emigrated to Gulf Cooperation Council countries, which includes Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, all these countries. Okay, the number of Syrians working in the GCC countries remained more or less the same in the early 1980s. The number of Lebanese workers reached 140,000. Okay, so Syrian Lebanese origin rose or declined during the rest of the 1980s, but the recent data says there are a lot of Lebanese and Syrian origin workers are working in the GCC countries. That is what you have to understand. Since March 2011, Syria has been into civil war. That's why the civil war has led to forced migration. We saw earlier thing was about voluntary migration, economic labor migrants. Now, forced migration, like refugees, which is giving rise to 5.6 million refugees and 6.2 million displaced people within Syria. Okay, Syria is now become very, known for its civil war, long civil war, which has led to forced migration of Syrians. They were displaced within the country as well as they moved out of Syria and settled elsewhere. So distribution of Syrian refugees population by December 2019 tells us in Turkey, 3.6 million Syrian refugees are living. In Lebanon, 1.0 million. Jordan has 250,000 Syrians. Iraq has 250,000 Syrians. Egypt has 130,000 Syrians. European countries has 1.5 million Syrian refugees. North American countries, 50,000 Syrian refugees are living. Okay, so this is what the Syria's migrant statistics. For example, apart from the voluntary migration, today Syria is witnessing forced migration because of civil war, which started from 2011. Still, it has not come to an end. So because of that, there is lots of migration from Syria. That's what we can see. And also see the pattern. They are like now moving to North America and other European countries as well, not only to neighboring countries. Okay. Then the Syrian diaspora population, including refugees, today they have like Brazil, 4.0 million, Turkey, Lebanon, Germany, Jordan, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE, Sudan, also receiving Syrian refugees. So according to government, so Lebanese diaspora also was estimated to have 15.4 million, and the Lebanese population at about 6.0 million in May 2018. Now we are discussing Lebanese diaspora, Lebanese, okay? But also Syrians do not have an automatic right to return to Syria because of this controversial absentee law, enacted by the Assad government, confiscated property of the millions of Syrians. So they can't come back. now they are in a situation they can't come back to their homeland because the Syrian government enacted a law called absentee law, which led to confiscation of their properties. Those who left Syria cannot come back. So they are forced to live in diaspora now. That is the situation they are facing. Okay, so coming to Lebanese diaspora, they are estimated to be like 15 million, and the Lebanese population is about 6.0 million in May 2018. Okay, so let's see where they are, focused. I mean, where they are concentrated. For example, most of the Lebanese diaspora they live in Latin America. 70% lived in Latin America, and 20% in North America, and 3.8 in Europe, and 3.5% in Oceania countries like Australia, New Zealand, and 1.7% in Arab countries also, and 0. In Africa and Asia. The country-wise distribution, Brazil has the largest number of Lebanese, okay, 7.0 million, followed by US, 5.0 million, Argentina, Mexico, Venezuela, Canada, France, Australia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UK, Germany, Kuwait, West and Central African countries. So Lebanese across the world, now. Okay. And the current, Lebanon also is known for its political instability, and they are surrounded by very politically volatile countries. So that's what, apart from war, uh, apart from voluntary migration, this kind of political instability, which leads to anxiety and other, issues, which makes them to migrate to safer havens across the, world. Then the Syrians and Lebanese abroad can be regarded as the pioneer Arab diasporic communities. So they are like the best examples for Arab diaspora or Muslim diaspora, the Syrians and Lebanese. Okay, Lebanese diaspora. Their main destination have been few select countries in Europe, America, and West Africa. That's what they are not everywhere like Jews, but they are like concentrated in few Americas, like Latin America, or Central America, North America, and few European countries. Okay, now, so this is what, about Syrian Lebanese diaspora. I think it's very important to know about them now because Syria and Lebanese, you can find them. They are visible in Gulf Caucasian countries and European countries and North American countries and Central American countries, because now, they are visible within the Asian diasporic community. Okay. Now coming to North African Arab diasporas. North African Arab diasporas can be put into two categories. North African diaspora, for example, Maghrebi, which means the people who belong to are Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. Okay. Then the next category is Egyptian diaspora. So North African diaspora can be broadly classified into two. Okay. One is, you call it Maghrebi diaspora, which originate from these following countries like Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. And the Egyptian diaspora also is a North African diaspora. The Maghrebi diaspora is mainly located in France because, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia were the French colonies. Okay, so which led to the French connection, it's a long French connection, which led to more Maghrebi diaspora. You can find them in France, in the defense, okay, particularly in defense. These Algerians, Moroccans, Tunisians were recruited during Second World War for the French army. So you can find them in France. Okay. The Maghrebi diaspora is mainly located in France, whereas the Egyptian diaspora is diversely placed. That's what. The Maghrebi diaspora is mostly concentrated in France, but Egyptian diaspora is concentrated in many places. They are scattered in many places. Okay. Although the Maghrebi diaspora to Europe dates back to late 19th century, the first wave of Algerian immigrants sorted to France was instigated by France itself in order to meet the needs of the manpower in the army. I said no army. The French army demanded many Algerians, Moroccans, Tunisians to work for what? The World War. So the First World War, Second World War, they were part of the French contingent defense. The end of the war, North America had furnished France with 175,000 soldiers and more than 150,000 workers. The second wave of North African immigration was during Second World War, okay, followed by post-independence period also. There is lots of migration from Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia to France because of you can say the connections which they historically they had with France during colonial time. In 1980s, there were about 1.5 million Maghrebi nationals in France. Okay. In 1989, there were 1.8 million foreign residents from the Maghrebi, means the North African region, which includes Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia. Okay. So this 474,200 from North Africa is the European community. Okay. So they are major group in France, North African diaspora or Maghrebi diaspora is very well known, visible in the public sphere of France. Okay. Since 1980s, the traditional immigration policy of France as well as Germany has reversed because of anti-immigration, racialism, economic recession led to lot of changes in the immigration policy of France and Germany, which reduced the North African immigration to Europe. Okay, that is what you have to understand. And also, there is a return migration also from this region back to North Africa. Okay, clear? Yes, to be clear. Return migration has also increased because of this racialism, change in immigration policy, which has resulted, in return migration or towards North Africa. Of the remaining two countries in North Africa were oil-rich Libya in recent times have been labor importing country. Okay, Egypt has been a labor exporting country. Libya attracted labor not only from neighboring countries but also many other Arab countries as well. So Libya employed 546,000 migrants from these Egyptians, Maghrebis, Asians in Libya. For example, the same year, distribution of Egyptian migrants in the countries. For example, Libya, there are 250,000 Egyptians, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, GCC countries. These countries, where you can find Egyptians, as workers. Okay. And they are all part of the Arab diaspora. That's what you have to understand. Okay. The total of 803,000 migrant workers, okay, Egyptians supplied about 1/4 of the all migrant workers to West Asia, North African countries. So you find many Egyptians going towards West Asia and North African countries where there's a demand for labor. Okay. So the population of Egyptian abroad was much higher in 1992s, and in many Egyptians also they migrate to GCC countries. They go to North Africa and West Africa and move towards GCC countries, not going to Europe or America. That you can see the pattern of the Egyptian migration. The strength of the Egyptian diaspora was estimated to be 4.7 million in 2010. So they have a figure, the Egyptian government saying it is increasing. Today they have got 9.47 million Egyptian expatriates. They are living in these countries, West Asian, West Africa, North Africa, and GCC countries. Okay. That's what you see. Of these 6.23 million lived in the Arab world, 1.5 million in the Americas and Europe, Australia, and also Africa, mostly South Africa, all these countries, they are now moving out. So Egyptian diaspora is really active and they are becoming, visible in these countries. So Arab diaspora is really, it's a very big term which includes many migrants from various 20 countries from the Middle East, okay, West Asia, and also North Africa, and they are called Arab diaspora. But we have discussed only about Palestine, and we have discussed about Syrian and Lebanese diaspora, and also, the Syrian, Lebanese, Palestine diaspora. They are very prominent and significant Arab diaspora. Okay, so now moving into next, Turkish diaspora. The Turkish diaspora is very, very important because you know very well that Turkey is the location of Turkey. Okay, that's what Turkey is a gateway to the West and East. You know, so Turks are no ethno-linguistic or ethno-linguistic group referring to both people who claim to be ethnically Turks who have Turkish language as their mother tongue. Okay, so they are second largest ethnic group in West Asia after the Arabs. Historically, Turkic people have been dispersed so far and wide in Eurasia. What is Eurasia? That is what I said. It's a gateway to Europe and Asia, Turkey. Okay, so Turkey is a place where the migrants, they came to Turkey and also they moved out of Turkey. That is what it's on the trade route. Okay, so it received lots of migrants from Arab migrants, European migrants. At the same time, the Turkish migrants also moved out from here. The Turkish diaspora consists of some two distinct categories. That is, the early diaspora, the early migrants, they went and created, Eurasia. That's what conquering migration history they have. Until about middle 20th century, they retained their Turkic ideology. Okay, and also the recent one, for example, the USSR. For example, the countries like Uzbekistan, all these countries where these Turkish populations are more. See, the Turkish diaspora communities in the former USSR, that is Central Asia, China, Iran, Afghanistan, and Bulgaria are important. The second category, they are now Germany, Holland, and France are significant. Okay, the early migrants went to these countries, Central Asian countries, like the former Soviet Union, Central Asian region, this Armenian, Uzbekistan, all these regions, Then China, Iran, Afghanistan, it's a world, Bulgaria. But now the new trend is towards Europe, Germany, Holland, and France. This is what, the Turkish migrants are moving in. The Central Republican, the major Turkic ethnic groups are like Uzbeks, Tatars, Kazakhs, Azeris, Kyrgyz. These are Turkic ethnic groups. They speak number of mutually intelligible Turkic dialects. Okay, even the China has Turkic groups, mostly concentrated in Eastern Turkestan, constitute about 10% of the 39 total Muslim population of China. Okay, the most Muslims in China with the culture of language, national affiliations. Okay, so they have that. The Chinese Muslims, they trace their origin from Turkey. Okay, in Iran, about 1/4 of the total population considers to be Turkic origin. Iran also has substantial number of Turkic migrants. Okay, the Central Asian republics, I told you, like Uzbeks, Tatars, these groups are, are Turkic origin, in China. Okay, that is what I just explained to you just now. Other sizable communities of Turks are living in Bulgaria and Afghanistan. Because of this, there is a pan-Turkic movement, pan-Turanian movement since at least the beginning of the last century. There is a greater Turkey because of this concentration of Turkic migrants in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Bulgaria. So there is a movement, a pan-Turkic, pan-Turanian movement. Prevalence of Turkic language and culture in these republics following disintegration of Soviet system. After disintegration of the Soviet Union, there's a revivalism of Turkic language, to create this greater Turkey. There are 35 million people of Turkic origin in 1918, these countries, which countries? Like former Soviet Union. Okay. It broke up in 1989, but these countries where Turkic populations are reviving their language and they are want to create greater Turkey. Okay, see, any movement or even idea of greater Turkestan might prove to be a destabilizing force in this region. Such a population are there in Central Asia. Today, this new Soviet Union, former Soviet Union countries. Small beginning in the 1950s, Turkey's immigration to Europe acquired massive importance, because later they moved to Holland, Germany, these countries. Okay. The old period is Central Asian countries or former Soviet Union countries, Afghanistan, China, Iran. But now mostly to Europe, they are moving. Okay. Between 1961 and 1965, Turkey's government signed agreements with the main labor importing countries of regular recruitment and migration, which has led to European migration. Okay. So despite meager immigration there are a lot of return migration from Europe also from 1980s. The Turkey's population in Europe has contributed to grow steadily through a combination of natural increase and illegal immigration and also family reunification. Okay. I think you are getting me what I'm trying to explain. There are two kinds of distinct migration pattern of Turkey's migration. One is the old migration, which they went to Central Asian countries, which is former Soviet Union countries, Afghanistan, China, Iran, Iraq. But now they are going to Europe. Okay. And also this European migration, not only for labor, voluntary as well as illegal immigration and also family reunification, which increases the migration of Turkish migrants in Europe. Okay. In 1990, about 2.4 million Turks were living in Europe. Okay, that is what the statistics. The distribution of Turkey's population in Europe has been consistent over the years. The largest concentration has been in Germany, followed by Holland, France, Belgium, and Switzerland have been other major destinations of Turkey's migrants. Turkish people also migrated to Gulf countries also, but relatively speaking, they're small in numbers. Okay, so mostly they migrate to Europe, not to the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. So these are the countries where, in Gulf countries where the Turkish populations are Libya, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait. So, and these countries where these Turkish populations are, located in the Gulf countries. So Turkey's immigrants abroad has been an important source of foreign exchange for the country since at least mid-1960s. Okay, so they are sending remittances to this Turkey. Okay, that is very, it's an economic link which they try to establish with their homeland. Besides shrinking remittances, repatriation or number of that's called Gastarbeiter. It's been guest workers in recent years has been a cause of concern in Turkey. Okay, because now there is a shrink of remittances from the Turkish diaspora because of this guest worker program, which is affecting the Turkey's remittances. Okay, so this is what about the Turkish migration. Now we are moving to next diaspora, which is very important in the West Asian region, is Iranian diaspora. Iranian diaspora is of recent origin. Okay, until the Islamic Revolution in 1979, only small number of Iranians migrated to Europe, North America, and other countries. That is included labor migrants, particularly to Germany in the 1760s and 80s. I'm just taking class. I'm online. See, among these migrants are also these political, religious activists who opposed the Shah regime, okay, in policies in 1970s. The Iranian Revolution or Islamic Revolution has led to, the Iranian migration to various parts of the world. Okay, so what is the triggering point? This Islamic revolution, which in 1979 Iran has witnessed, which has created, the Iranian diaspora. Most of the post-revolutionary immigrants were refugees who sought political asylum in Europe, North America, particularly in Germany, Netherlands, France, the UK, the US, and Canada. These countries have Iranian population. The sixth largest non-European nationality, that is Iranian refugees, continue to seek asylum in Europe. The Iranian diasporic population in Europe and North America is presently estimated about 4.5 million. Imagine North America is having 4.5 million Iranians. Okay, so the Iranians usually they live in USA, Turkey, Germany, Israel, and in UK, Sweden, and Malaysia, Russia. These countries where Iranians are attracted to move in because of various reasons, maybe the immigration policy or the countries which are favoring them to come and settle. So these are the reasons. Okay. Europe and North America, Iranians also migrated to work in neighboring Arab countries. In 1980s, there were about 112,000 migrant workers in Gulf countries, particularly in the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, where the Iranian migration is, the Iranians migrate. A large number of Iran illegal migrants are living in Turkey. Okay, according to one study, about 3 lakh Iranians entered Turkey between 1979 and 1994. Okay, after coming to Turkey, they took visa and they migrated to USA, Canada, West European countries. But still, Turkey has a substantial number of Iranian migrants. They are mostly illegal and they are doing menial jobs, drug smuggling and prostitution and etc. All this. Okay. So, but the Iranians have brought, a lot of money to Turkey because of their economic involvement in these countries. Okay. That is what the Iranian migration is towards West as well as neighboring, Arab countries, particularly the Turkey and also the Gulf countries where Iranians are moving in large numbers. Finally, we are just coming to the last part of the segment that is called Kurdish diaspora. You know, Kurdish diaspora also is a very politically active and also they are not able to still create this Kurdistan, okay, because Turkey is not giving up. Okay, but the Kurdish diaspora is pushing for creating a new home country, Kurdistan, from Turkey and from, you know, parceling out from Iran and Iraq. They want to see, look at the map, but this is what Kurdistan looks like, but still they could not achieve of creating a new homeland for themselves. So Kurds are not Arab Sunni Muslims scattered in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Russia since 1920s. I mean, first World War, say. They found themselves dispossessed, divided by the great powers. Today, numbering about 31 million, these Kurds are largest number without Kurdish national state. That's what they don't have nation state for themselves. They have a separate identity, culture, language, but still they're trying to create their own homeland. But one of the total Kurdish population is located in Turkey, which does not recognize separate Kurdish ethnic identity, culture, or language, where the Kurdish Workers' Party has been waging a bloody campaign for independence. Okay, this party is supported by the Kurdish diaspora, the Kurdish Workers' Party. Okay, yes. The Turkish diaspora is equally repressive. I mean, because they don't like Turkey being divided to create a new independent country called Kurdistan. Okay, so the Kurds also living in Iraq, they're living in Turkey. Okay, and also they are like 8.1 million Kurds reside in Iran, about 1.7 million in Syria. Russia also hosting 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh Kurds. Okay, Kurds are living. They are considered in Europe also, particularly Germany, which alone boasts about 850,000 Kurds. Majority of these Kurds, they come from Turkey, and they just wanted to create. That's what, they are having funding, they are leading various protests to create a separate country for themselves, particularly from France, Netherlands, Sweden, Austria, Belgium, UK, and Greece. So Europe has lots of Kurdish population. They are still trying to create their homeland for themselves, like Jewish diaspora, but Turkey is not giving up. Even Turkish diaspora is opposing this idea of Kurdistan. So coming to the conclusion, Jewish diaspora is now overwhelmingly concentrated in industrially advanced countries that relate Europe and North America. The West Asian diaspora to have increasingly been showing tendency to resettle themselves in the Western countries. Okay, and also the size, distribution, and population, of this Jewish diaspora is well researched, but not Syrian diaspora, Lebanese diaspora, Palestine diaspora, other West Asian diasporas. There is not much research work. Okay, there are a lot of research gaps. But there's a lot of research on Jewish diaspora, but not on the the other West Asian diasporas. It's a growing area. Even some of you might can take up if you know the language of Turkey, if you know the Turkish language, or if you know the language, you can take up this kind of research and to know about their various aspects of their life experience outside their home country. Okay, this is what today I want to discuss with you. I hope you came to know various important highlights of these West Asian diasporas, like where they migrate, where they are scattered across, and why they migrated. That's what, mostly there are two things: voluntary migration, then forced migration. Okay, that's just what these two major patterns you can see in all these diasporas of West Asia. Okay, that's where I stop. I want to stop here. Now I'm ready to work. Take up your questions. If you have any questions, you are most welcome. I can explain to you whatever I come to know about these diasporas. Okay.
Maybe around 2 questions we can take.
Okay.
So I just want to say the Galaxy A7. Can you identify yourself? Galaxy A7. Yes.
Yeah, actually, I was having some network issues, so I tried to connect through my mobile. So I will just disconnect it.
That's fine. So anybody else? He'll be connecting back. So in the meantime, can I take up any question from Nirmal? Nirmal is there.
Yes. If there is no question, we'll go to next class. And maybe you can write to Dr. Mahalingam, his email ID and subject. Okay?
Yeah.
That email ID also is there in this PPT.
Sir, I have not written my email ID.
No problem. I'll give you. Okay?
Yeah.
Now the next speaker is Dr. Abhar Chawla, and thank you Mahalingam for a very informative talk. And
okay.
Maybe we can invite you again for the next talk.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. And also, if you have any queries, please drop a mail to me, and you will be getting my ID from your course coordinator, Dr. Sadam Sahu. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. So we have Dr. Abhay Chawla. He has worked on social media in his PhD and regularly publishing articles, books, and he's very active in the academic forum also. And today he'll be talking about The topic is, I already circulated.
Minorities.
Citizenship and Multiculturalism, Unit 75. And this is very important topic because we all come across this kind of issue when diaspora population is involved. They somewhere they are minority, somewhere they are also part of the broad multicultural society, and somewhere they are majority also. So these are all contested issues, and every country is facing also. So this is a very interesting unit, and over to you, Dr. Chawla.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Sadanan. In fact, when I was preparing this topic, I thought there was a very interesting analogy that I could, talk about, and from there we could take this topic further. Everybody is able to hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So let's look at a very predominant prevailing practice in India, possibly in the subcontinent, of a household with a daughter and a son. And when the daughter gets married, after marriage, she's supposed to go and stay with the husband's family. So now the interesting part here is, if we were to consider, let's not look at the nation, which is a larger entity. Let's look at a very small entity of a family. The daughter gets married into the husband's family. Now, does she immediately get accepted as the husband's family, or it's her child which gets born in the husband's family which gets accepted in the fine? Is she a part of the husband's family, and the very fact that if she's a part of the husband's family, does she stop being the part of the family from which she comes from? How does this negotiation happen? If we were to look at this, and then look at the fact that when a girl goes from a particular family into the husband's family, she is in terms a minority in that particular family. What is her rights? And assuming the fact that if there are two families, even if they are from identical religion or caste or various, there would definitely be a difference in some cultures, which could be as small as in terms of the food habits. Now, let's extrapolate and see when people move from one country to another during multiple scenarios, what typically happens. And then we'll be able to relate in terms of what is a minority, how does a diaspora come about, how does citizenship come about, what are citizenship rights, what is multiculturalism. If we all reduce it to a simple thing of a girl getting married and moving into a new house, we are able to understand it that much better. So let's come to the presentation. And as we go along, we will see how the girl moving also, then we can extrapolate and see how the complications come when citizens move, or when people move, or when migration happens. So I'll stop the video and I'll put the presentation on. Hang on. Share screen. That is it. Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, wonderful. So we are talking about Unit 76. As a close option.
Ranjit, in case you are comfortable without video, you can switch off also. Sometimes,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. So my chat is on. In case you want to, in between say something, you can put it on a chat. You can stop me at any moment of time. So we're talking about minority, citizenship, and multiculturalism. Minority, as Dr. Sadhana was talking about is a spatial and time factor. All of us can become a minority based on space and time. This is the objective of this unit, to understand key items like minority, citizenship, and multiculturalism, role of migration, diaspora, community formation, need and role of citizenship, the concept of dual nationality, citizenship, and dual citizenship, relationship between multiculturalism, diaspora, and multiculturalism as a sustainable human cohabitation. If you remember from our unit 75, when we talked about diaspora formation, we realized that human history is all about movement. In fact, when the first modern humans came about, they moved from Africa into and inhabited all parts of the world. So migration was a basic, part of our DNA. And now we are trying to reconcile between stationarism and movement. So the citizenship and diaspora is almost a conflict between being stationed at a place and continue to be moving. Basic facts. Individuals or groups of people, when they migrate from one place to another, they form. So when the girl gets married and goes into her husband's house, who does she talk to? And in case there is another girl in the neighborhood house who happens to be from her village, from her city, or from her local area, she would be, more comfortable with that person than the husband's house, assuming the fact that, it's an arranged marriage. She does not know the family. And this is the first time she's coming into a new household. They tend to segregate, differentiate themselves from the rest of the people or majority groups, leading to both geographical and psychological difference. Obviously, there's this girl who has come into a new house. She's trying to understand the customs. She's trying to understand the politics at play. She's trying to understand what is liked and what is disliked. And more often than not, for a community feeling of security, the people who migrate tend to remain together. And today, for all of us, we are all, moving based on a job, based on, various reasons, a feeling of security, safety, intra-community bonhomie. And when such groups live longer in a period of time, they tend to form a diasporic group. Now, think about the fact that there's a family with two sons who've got married to two sisters, and both the sisters tend to come, and now they're comfortable with each other and talking. Now this husband's family, what is the state? How do they perceive it? Similarly, when a minority group goes in a host, challenge to the host country's government, as they're considered an outsider. So how does this work out? How does this cohabitation work out? And once these people stay in a host country for a longer period of time, they are naturalized and become citizens of the host country. So there is there's an interplay between diaspora, between minority, between, citizenship, and the whole thing is intertwined in multiculturalism. Now, in modern democracies, there are deliberate attempts to either integrate or assimilate these diaspora. So again, in India, this has been an old argument or an old debate, whether do we integrate the indigenous tribes, integrate in the sense, get them into the majority culture, or do we allow them to grow with their own culture? So, for example, there has been a set of people who say that modern facilities like modern medicine should be brought in for these indigenous tribes, where there is other people say that they are, they understand their own way of medication, which is the forest and various things, and they should continue. This is a debate which is continuing. based on the principle of multiculturalism, which treats all humans as equal. So that is where the principles of multiculturalism came in, where say all humans are equal. And let's not discriminate based on race, caste, religion, gender, or nationality. And the fact that people from diverse backgrounds and ethnicity can cohabit. In fact, a metropolis is a great place for multiculturalism, where people from all places, all diverse backgrounds can cohabit and work towards development of a just and democratic society. So minority citizenship and multiculturalism are correlated and having a bearing on each other. So these are the basic facts. So let's look at diaspora as a minority. Diasporas are ethnic, religious, colonial professionals, process of migration and are demographic phenomena. More often than not, whenever you are traveling and go to a distant place, you tend to be a minority. In fact, group of people united under a common ethnicity, religion, or language, which is numerically inferior to the rest of the population, is constituted. That's the definition as Capatority in 1991 talked about it. But this has also been contested, that this minority majority is a binary categorization and was created by a colonial narrative. Sometimes they say that this is a self-imposed. So for example, there's been a lot of debate in India about whether Muslims comprise a minority or not, considering the fact they have a sizable largest population. Now, these are something which can be contested in various ways. And in academics, always, the way academics works is contesting of everything which comes in. So this has been contested. I hope I'm not going too fast. Guys, I hope I'm not going too fast.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Because I also understand that because parallelly there are multiple units being taught, a lot of overlapping might be happening. And that is why at some places I'm speeding up. People lived at, so had people lived at the same place from time immemorial, there will be neither a minority, neither a diaspora formation. But we have seen historically that people do not stay at a particular place. There are various reasons for movement of people. In fact, a newest reason for movement of people would be environment. Climate change is going to bring about climate refugees, which is in the near future, in the near present and near future, is going to be a huge thing. According to one estimate, 10 to 20% of the world population, about 600 million to 1.2 billion live under minority status, because inevitably people are always moving. And the safety and security of minority groups rest on the principles of protection of existence and non-exclusion. Now one needs to understand the fact that are these minorities supposed to be protected? Is there a safety or security of the minority? Or is always the majority supposed to be heavy on the minorities? But again, as we were talking about, minority depends on space and time. A majority today can become a minority based on movement or migration. So it is stipulated that they should not be forced as a part of policy to assimilate with the rest, because over a period of time, we've also seen the diversity. And if you see nature, and I think that's how policy planners and academics and various people in governments have understood that the larger the diversity, the better chance for human survival. In fact, that's what adds a value to life, adds value to nations. So they say the integration should be under a common law, thus allowing freedom to exercise cultural, linguistic, and religious uniqueness. In fact, the diversity brings value to life and to nations. That's how the thought process has been. So a case study of Habshis. In fact, last unit 75 also, we talked about Habshis and Siddhis, Africans called by various names. And in fact, the human history is a history of, people migrating out of Africa, where the first human beings, the modern human beings came about. And they came and settled in various parts of the country. So, for example, they live in coastal Karnataka, Gujarat. A large number of them are Muslims. Some have converted into Christianity. And genetically, they have been aligned with the DNA of Bantu tribe. But again, that would have also changed over a period of time. Large number of them reside in coastal Gujarat, especially in Junagadh, Jamnagar. They're economically and social marginalized. And 100 years of living, they have been assimilated and become a part of the Gujarati culture. But the fact is, they are still marginalized, they are still backward, and that is why the government has included them in the scheduled tribes list. So how to engage or features of a diasporic minority community? One way is by reservations. So one of the thought process of policymakers or states or various think tanks is that if we are able to provide reservations for this minority for preserving of their identity, and this is supposed to be done by the government. But this has also spiraled into something called politics of recognition. For example, there will be a section of the majority community which might say that you are doing appeasement, or it becomes a political issue hotly contested by native majority and community that feels that right and resources have been liquidated or shared. So, for example, the recent flare-up in Manipur seems to be because of reservations between these two sections of people in the state. And we have seen across the world this happening. The second aspect of diaspora minority is activism. So the minority diaspora is actively participating to serve its own interest in the home country. They have been known to stir and sustain unrest. They've also, so everything is not negative. So they have also been seen as this minority diaspora in helping resolve and restoration of peace. For example, the Eritrean and the Sri Lankan diaspora. So that's the second feature, which is activism. And there is a third feature of something called a model minority. So, for example, in the Indian immigrants in the US, there was this feeling that most immigrants are techies. They are, high-level white-collared workers. They are savvy, proficient in English. Contrary, there's another group in the Indian diaspora whose migration patterns center has been responsible in the marginalization within the same ethnic group. The taxi drivers, the janitors, the low-level workers, the blue-collar workers. And this has led to a creation of minority within the minorities, less educated and lower occupational status. So diaspora itself becomes fragmented. So this is one of the features, how what is happening. When did the earlier diasporas, what were the earlier diasporas, what happened when the later migration happened. So these are some of the features. Migration in minority diaspora formation. Migration is obviously a predominant factor. As we read earlier, when people migrate, initially they are a minority, and then they, over a period of time, they collate to form a diaspora, and their identity affirmations as a minority. And the phenomena is a demographic formation, is slow and protracted, sometimes extending to decades and centuries. Sometimes because of numerical strength over a course of time, they undergo changes in their status. For example, migration of indentured labor. So places like Suriname, Fiji, Africa, they went in as indentured laborers, and subsequently, their numerical strength grew. So a case studies of Jewish diaspora. They have been migrating over a period of 2,500 years. They were also a reason they were discriminated against. They were victimized during course of history. We've known about the Jew Holocaust, what happened, how the Nazi Germany treated Jews. And because of racial and political discrimination, they were barred from political participation. See, again, remember the initial example I was talking about, this girl who gets married and goes into now the husband's household. Does she get a right of deciding that family's future? So, for example, that family is looking at, let's say, buying a property. Does this girl now has a say in what property to buy, where to buy? Does that the husband's family stop her visitation rights to her home? Does the husband's family stop her from giving help, monetary help to her parents? Does she stop being the daughter of the parents from the household she has come from? It's a complicated negotiation. Now you extrapolate it to multiple people and then try and visualize how states and how majority communities in host nations would perceive, and then there is politics involved. Despite living for decades in some countries, Jews, for example, got citizenship rights in Russia only in the 20th century. So this is how the complicated negotiation happens. And then there are a whole lot of things which come in between. And one of the factors which comes in between is citizenship. Citizen, in the rudimentary form, citizenry is quite akin to a tribal community where affinity and loyalty forms the crux. A member of the tribal community is expected to perform certain services. For the better of the community, they're expected to respect. In the modern form, these symbols of affinity can be seen as artifacts of national anthem, flag, and other national. So more often than not, it's like in a tribal community or in a nation, you feel that a person which is either they are my own or they are others. Coming back to the marriage analogy, does the husband's household perceive the girl who has joined that family as their own? Or is she still an outsider because she's not a blood relation, she's not born out there, but she has come from outside? So that's how a citizenship works, and how this tribal community, how this extended or how this coalesced into, citizenship. The Greco-Roman civilization was extended to a larger geographical and demographic areas, and then written norms came in, a precursor to a present-day constitution. So today, when we say we are citizens of India, it is based on a written constitution which gives us this right of citizenships. And what are these rights? These are rights in terms of we have certain rights. We have a freedom of speech, we have a freedom of religion, we have a freedom of a culture. And they say that between citizens and non-citizens, citizens have a right. We have a right of electing our government. Non-citizens do not have that right. These are rights, privileges, and duties towards the territorial sovereignty. Basic principles of polity, especially during war and conquest and agitation. See, inevitably, also, the human history is a history of conflicts. So one had to figure out who is on their side and who is opposing, that side. So if you will look at the basic tribal community, who is from their tribe and who is not from their tribe. And these norms took the shape of conventions, practices, and laws which were codified. It was actually the French Revolution which strengthened the territorial nation state. So if we look at it, the nation state is a pretty relatively new concept. And the kind of citizenry is insider and outsider. Remember, the girl who gets married, goes into the husband's house, is she an insider or an outsider? A lot of families treat this girl as an outsider. a foreigner, a stranger, there is a trust factor. See, inevitably, the trust is the factor by which things work. The binary seems to exist even now in the forms of natives and immigrants and diaspora, with the latter being looked upon less favorably on some of the countries. And this is ironical because the whole human history has been a history of migration, has been a story of migration. And yet, in the 21st century, we are still grappling with this issue of us versus them. So citizen is territorialized and immobile, whereas migration and diaspora are mobile and deterritorialized. Migration thwarts homogenization, exclusion of social, cultural. Citizen binds people, mobility frees them. Quite contrast of purity, ethnicity, and loyalty. So again, these kind of debates have been happening from this story has been right from human history. It's the territorialized citizenship that's been responsible in different categories of we and otherness. So this fight between us and them is a story of human history. And very interesting things are happening now in the 21st century, especially after COVID. We'll see as we go along how things are changing. Now the state, especially liberal democracies on its part, are expected to provide security and inalienable rights to its citizens, which includes freedom of religion, livelihood, contributory rights, because citizens have to contribute to the welfare of the state. Citizenship is also known to alienate and assimilate. Now, citizenship can be also used two ways. It can be used to assimilate and also to alienate, ostracize and equalize. So citizenship also in the modern times is used both as an inclusive and an exclusive disposition. And so, for example, let's look at Tibetans. So there are two refugees. When we look at the course material, there are example of two refugees, the Tibetan refugees and the Rohingya refugees. Whereas the Tibetans are, the Indian state have looked at the Tibetan refugees as an inclusive concept. The Rohingya refugees, they have looked as an exclusive concept. Inclusive, exclusive. So let's look at the Tibetan arrived in 59. There are almost about 94,000 more people of Tibetan diasporic community. They are given identity certificates which grant them all rights of Indian citizen except right to vote and right to government employment. They are recognized as foreigners and not as refugees. Whereas the Rohingyas has been identified as something different. In fact, if you Google, you will find out how they have been identified and whether that religion has a role to play or not. Although the clauses of obtaining Indian citizenship are hotly contested, unlike many other refugee hosting countries, India did not adopt the policy of integrating Tibetans into the mainstream. Now, this is also hotly contested. Do we integrate a diaspora or do we not integrate a diaspora? It facilitated the, so once we try and integrate, we are going against the basic grain of their culture, the diasporic culture. And if we do not try and assimilate, but assimilation is more in terms of a common law or a just law, then the distinctive culture and tradition and identities, prosper. In fact, that's what gives diversity of a nation, a fill-up. So diaspora and host countries, so some countries allow dual citizenship. And why dual citizenship is allowed by some countries? Remittance obviously becomes one of the main reasons. For example, country like Mexico, political diaspora is an integral part because it not only sends remittances, but finances political parties. So if you see lately, the Indian state has been engaging extremely strongly with the diasporic community. So the Indian Prime Minister goes to Australia, he meets with the diasporic community, he goes to US, he meets with the diasporic community. A lot of messaging is going to the diasporic community because obviously the diasporic community plays a huge role in the home nation. Now let's look at citizenship in the 21st century. Major changes, mass mobilization is happening. And in fact, the COVID brought in a lot of drastic changes. With work from home happening, suddenly people realized that if they can work from home, they can work from just about every place. And a new term, which is called digital diasporas, or digital nomads have come in. In fact, a lot of countries are now today bringing visas for digital nomads where people can stay in any country for a duration of time. Citizenship no longer a monolith or a homogeneous legal status and varies from country to country. Now the expansion of citizens to include denizens, quasi-citizens, dual citizen. In fact, internet itself has brought in a whole lot of changes in the way people think, in the way countries behave. So for example, today, the way I can sit in India, work in the US, using internet, work from home and the COVID has brought in a lot of changes in not only understanding, but the way work is being done in the world system. And then there is something called breach diaspora. So for example, dissolution of Soviet Union, there were people who were left outside the borders of the titular states. There was a deliberate attempt by Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan to reconnect with these people. There are so many changes which has been happening. So there is this new concept called breach diasporas. In fact, Kazakh, as a measure of policy, attempted to exhort its diaspora to return to balance diasporic disadvantage. And strangely, once the balance was achieved, the Kazakh as a country turned lukewarm towards its diasporas. And also all these examples showed that just as diasporas use home country for vested interests, likewise the home country uses them for their own advantages. As I said, it's a complicated and a complex negotiation between diaspora's group, between home country, between host country, between majority population, between minority, and it's a continuously evolving thing. So let's look at some of the forms and types of citizenships. So there are basically 6 categories based on the rights. These are what is called the Latin terms: jus sanguinis, jus solis, matrimony, naturalization, excluded categories, transnational citizenship. So let's quickly go through each one. Sanguinis is right of blood. Individuals are giving citizenship based on the relation of blood. The girl who gets married and goes into the husband's household obviously is not blood related. So countries like China, India, South Korea, examples which give citizenship based on history of belonging. The opposite to this is jus soli, right of soil. Individual obtains citizenship based on being born within a particular territory. US, Canada, Germany, Israel are some of the countries offering such kind of citizenship to people born in their territory. Then the third is matrimony, forms of citizen by virtue of matrimonial alliance. While some countries follow their own citizenry law, they also grant citizenship to individuals who may marry. Now, it could be countries could follow multiple scenarios where marriage also or solely being born out there could be 2 ways of getting citizenship. And as we had already seen, when people stay for a longish period of time and diaspora formation happens, they do it out, they get citizenship out of naturalization. Natural course of time based on either long time residency or matrimonial rights. His most recent origin, transnational movements of people crossing borders for work, business, and other reasons. Most countries provide naturalized citizenship based on either residency or just matrimony. So this is the fifth form. And of course, there are the excluded categories. Citizenship formed on inclusion. Citizenship, if it is formed on inclusion, also can mean exclude of group of people who are deliberately deprived of political rights. For example, the Sri Lankan problem started when the Tamils were being deprived of their rights. Tamils have been part of Sri Lanka since I think when they traveled as indentured laborers or whatever over a course of history. There was this law which came in which tried to deprive all the Rohingya Muslims who have been deprived of rights in Myanmar, which led to that army which was formed, and subsequently things which came in about. This has been a case with indentured laborers. Countries exercise this form of citizenry to exclude working immigrants despite having worked. For example, Gulf region, even if you've been working for a long time, can you get a citizenship of the Gulf region? If you have been staying for a long time? So a lot of countries do this citizenship as a form of exclusion. Then there is the latest concepts of dual nationality and dual citizenship, the transnational citizenship. Because now mobility has become common feature in 21st century, some countries also emerge the need to respect their political rights both in home and host country. So there is this thought process which is happening that even if, let's take the earlier example, even if the girl has got married and has traveled to the husband's house, does she stop being the daughter of the family? Does she have a right in that household? Similarly, just because a citizen of India has traveled to the US for work for an extended period of time, does he stop being an Indian? So there is this concept of dual nationality and dual citizenship, which is a novel innovation in political governance. Dual nationality extends certain rights and privileges to diaspora, unlimited visits, right to own property, carry on business, but debars from political rights to contest or to vote. Whereas dual citizenship extends this right to include voting right, which makes the diaspora an integral part of the political process. And in fact, the way the world is moving, I guess more and more countries very shortly will look at the fact, and especially with internet being there, again, it's going to be a political process of negotiation, but it makes so much sense, to have, a dual citizenship. But again, it depends on how the countries negotiate, how the political process happens. In fact, there is a new setup which is happening in terms of the EU, where you are a part of EU, at the same time you are a part of your individual nation, which is a part of EU. So we'll see that also. So for example, there are 64 countries which offer dual citizenship. Some countries offer citizenship based on descent. There are categories where dual citizenship is not allowed. India offers dual nationality through something called the Overseas Citizen of OCI scheme, which was enacted as a law in 2003. There was this talk about OCI being allowed to take part in the political process. There was this talk, how this proceeds. Let's look at it. Say, for example, in Indian diaspora, there were 3 categories. It started off with persons of Indian origin, PIOs, part of the old Indian diaspora, Fiji, Mauritius, Suriname, where all the indentured labor went. The second was the NRIs. Post-independence continues to be a citizen, hold Indian passport, enjoy political rights to vote in Indian election. And the third was the OCI. In fact, as a part of the OCI scheme now, all categories have been merged with OCI. So obviously, as I said, there was this talk of getting them to take part in the political process also. And in fact, all these changes in citizenship is happening because of economic liberalization, globalization, the internet. The internet is leading to changes which are, in fact, a lot of changes have happened which were unimaginable some years back. To accommodate multiple identities with political rights at more than one place of residence, to provide non-territorial, extraterritorial citizenship to people who allegiance to multiple sites. And that's what happened. The girl who's moved to her husband's house owes allegiance to her husband's household, but at the same time, she owes allegiance to her parents. She does not disappear. She does not stop being the daughter of her parents. And I think that's the kind of extrapolation which the countries are now doing, home and host countries, citizen rights to people who are living beyond the territory. The transnational citizenship. Premise, as Bubok said, that the rights and obligation of citizens change when an individual leaves the territory of citizenship, but they do not disappear. The girl who has got married and moved to her husband's house does not disappear, does not stop being the daughter of her parents. So how can you say that she does not belong to this household? Similarly, if an Indian has gone and settled in France, he doesn't stop being an Indian. He carries the same culture. So that is the kind of thought process in terms of transnational citizenship. Diaspora continues to identify with the country of origin, socially and politically. Transnationalism and find acceptance in the tenets of global supranational organization. So EU is a supranational organization. A person can be a citizen of EU as well as a country of belonging. And there is no conflict. The new configuration based on state, citizen, and supranational bodies has resulted into reconstruction of new order of state. And this will only continue and expand because movement is going to happen. As I said, today, COVID and internet has brought in something called a digital nomad. There are as many as 30 million digital nomads supposedly moving about. Now, what happens when their population crosses a threshold? The countries would have to move to account for all these transnational people. States continue to territorial boundary. Okay, so let's look at the last concept of multiculturalism. Form of plural society is one which is a medley of people. They mix, but they do not combine. Group holds its own religion, its own culture, language. Anytime any person comes and says, my culture is better than yours, on what basis would that statement be made? In fact, as we know, the diversity factor, in fact, the whole world is talking about diversity. The diversity factor adds to in fact, the productivity and the development of a country, organization, etc., etc. There's a plural society with different sections of the community living side by side, but separately within the same political units. So that's one of the definitions of multiculturalism. We normally say multiculturalism is like the garam masala, what we do in Indian cuisine. The garam masala always provides that extra zing in the taste. And so there are two analogies in terms of assimilation of minority in a multicultural society. One analogy is the melting pot, and the second is a salad bowl analogy. And the melting pot is when everything, melts together and makes one identity. It has its advantages, it has its disadvantages, but the second analogy is a salad bowl, where in a salad bowl, each particular part of the salad looks separately, tastes separately, and provides a much more aesthetic look to the whole dish. Whereas some recent scholars have opposed both the models of assimilation on the grounds that they are forced and artificial attempts of homogenized diverse society in a well-defined mood. So both melting pot and salad bowl are more in terms of a forced analogy. So as scholars are saying, there could be multiple other ones rather than these two analogies. Then there are how this assimilation happens. Do you allow the minorities to live together or to segregate them in different groups and mainstream them with the rest of the population? Now, if you allow them to live together, there is something called ghettoization, because inevitably, if you've seen, when we look at Indians in the US, they tend to group together, they tend to, intermarry, their functions are the same. Whereas if you are to segregate them among the majority population, they will feel insecure, they will feel traumatized, because, we tend to collate, or we tend to be most comfortable with people or with cultures that we know. So this is again a debate which is a continuous debate. So initially, when nations and states became postulating multiculturalism, political establishment perceived as a serious threat to its sovereignty. The girl who has got married and come to the husband's house, when she decides to put her opinion onto, let's say, important affairs like buying a property, now it's a serious challenge to that family, because here's an outsider or a perceived outsider. Similarly, when this diaspora starts, putting in their point of view, it becomes a serious threat. When people of various races, ethnicity, religion, ideological inhabiting a common, the site soon becomes the site of contesting spaces. What typically happens is in Manipur is a contest. It's a site of contesting spaces. Who gets the benefit? Who gets the reservation? Does the reservation work? Why do we need a reservation? Who is cutting into whose part? So all these debates come into the picture. There's a lot of politics which comes into being. However, the new global order of multiculturalism decoupled the territorial nation states with citizenship, let people of diverse citizenship identities. See, more often than not, multiculturalism also is a concept which, unless people are able to understand and how political leaders put out this concept. So if you are putting it out as a good concept, then people understand it. If you put it out as a limiting concept, as something that will take the majority's rights or their political space away, then it becomes a bad concept. So centers of urban multiculturalism, states agreed to accept and promote plural differences. As I said, today, Indian metropolis, and in Indian metropolis, it's a multiculturalism space, equal access to resources to all groups, including minorities, positively accepted religious, cultural, and racial difference. One needs to understand that all human beings are different. In fact, there are different communities, and more often than not, once people understand that there are differences between each person, and the fact is that those differences actually add value rather than subtract value, everybody will be at peace. But more often than not, the contest happens because there is a political battle going on between us versus them. And if you are able to give, if you are able to assimilate in terms of common laws or, just laws, then, begins to refute racism, ethnocentric domination of majority in demography. Celebrate the differences which results from race, culture, religion, gender, and sexuality. And let me, then of course there is a critique who oppose multiculturalism on the grounds that it prevents development of pan-ethnic. So does a school have a common uniform? So what does a common uniform do? It does get a ethnic consciousness of the students of a particular school wearing a similar uniform to have a common identity. So similarly, a country which has multiculturalism, you cannot develop a pan-ethnic consciousness and essentializes an identity, fails to recognize. But there is this mobility which is happening that differentiates between individual preferences at the cost of scripted group identity. So there is a group of people who say that we need to have a common identity, one common religion, one common way in which we understand things. And that sometimes becomes a forced things, whereas the multiculturalism talks about every identity being equal and every community and every culture being equal. So there is this battle in the political space. Another critique of multicultural practices tries to control and manage cultural and racial differences, obscuring the issue of power. Now, so there is this debate in terms of whether a uniculture or a monoculture is better or a multiculture is better. We have seen historically that human history or the story of human history is a story of migration. Every community tends to develop unique cultures. However, in a political space, there is this fight between multiculturalism and monoculturalism. It is more of a political, debate. This debate again is a story of human history, and this shall continue. Okay. Let's conclude summing up. So diaspora formation and their minority status, features of diasporic minority community and the states. How does the state engage with the minority community? Does it assimilate or does it allow the diasporic community to grow at its own steam? We have looked at citizenship and its type. We have looked at the fact that in how based on transnationalism, there is dual nationality and citizenship. We are looking at integration and assimilation of diasporas in multiculturalism. And we have looked at multiculturalism and transnational spaces. So this is all we have looked at in this unit. And some of the references that you could look at, Benedict Anderson, we can look at Appadurai. Appadurai has written a lot about, diasporas, modernity at large, disjunction and differences in global culture. We've looked at Angela Davis, and we could look at N.T. Sharma, Hip Hop Desis, the Altman and Scope, The Invisible Immigrants, and Watson, Multiculturalism. Any questions? Any questions?
I think little difficult for many for this, conceptually very deep conceptual issues are there. So if there is no question, there are no questions, we'll conclude here, and you can send email to Dr. Abhacharma.
Swadesh, hi, any question? Swadesh has been a constant.
Swadesh is attending, actually he's an activist. He's managing the migrants and all this.
Yeah, hi sir.
Hi Swadesh, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Any questions?
Very good class. Easily you can explain very well.
In fact, I thought that marriage analogy worked extremely, at least I thought the marriage analogy works very well in understanding the minority status in terms of citizenship, in terms of us versus them, in terms of multiculturalism.
Yes. The three categories are NRI, OCI. We are get very good idea.
PIO.
Yeah.
But they are all
Thank you.
merged now into the OCI.
Yes, yes.
Nirmal, Kangad, any questions?
One important area these days happening, many countries, if you see, they're against multiculturalism. They're against multiculturalism.
Swadesh, just mute your mic, please. Okay.
Many countries are against multiculturalism. You can see elections are fought against, creating a bad picture of migrants across, Europe, America, and I think many countries are having some kinds of issue with migrants. I don't know how will be the future, but currently migrants are in a very dangerous situation.
Sadha, the same thing is there in terms of debate of, people are moving at the same time, the local people feel threatened. Then there is this political, messaging, how the political messages is happening about whether the migrants are good or bad. And then the highlighting of certain things about the migrants, of their culture and our culture. So obviously I think this story will continue.
Yes, the irony is every human being is a migrant,
Is a migrant, absolutely.
If you take even the biggest, threat of the country who are against the migration anywhere, they themselves were migrant 2-3 generations back,
Correct. America is the biggest story of migration.
So the whites in USA, they came to 4 to 5 generations.
Absolutely.
So they, they're against now black, they're against the new migrants.
Absolutely.
So this is what happening. And we have actually K. Ranjit here, is also part of this program. He's DIG of SSB, Sashastra Sima Bal.
Okay.
And he'll be interested in more on border security and migration. So, K. Ranjit, you have anything to ask? Yes.
Hi, Ranjit.
I'm very happy, many of them, from security and military, they're interested in this subject.
No, very interesting because, again, the more perspectives we have, the more our understanding grows.
Not only that, they will be handling actually the most critical part. Within border, within the country, anything crisis happen, not police, actually the people in the army, they handle when the crisis goes out of hand, they handle.
Correct. Yes, Ranjit, any questions? You are muted. You're muted. Ranjit, switch on your mic.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually, this is my first class online. I'm attending.
Okay.
I'm grateful that whatever this theoretical concepts, you are able to connect with what are the latest developments taking place, especially in Manipur and all. So naming the tribes and Mithai and whatever the
cookies.
Yes, there's you are able to relate the theory, whatever we are studying, to whatever the latest incidents or trends we are seeing. I am grateful for that. This is more like migration. We can see an example. We had a lot of people from Nepal migrating to India, looking at, and they are traveling as far as they are working in maybe Bangalore, even Kerala, my hometown also. Find people from it. There's a very disturbing trend that recently now we are seeing that these people who have migrated maybe India long back, now they are engaged in criminal activities also. And we are getting a lot of messages that we have to look out, notice and all, that they have committed some crime and all. So this is also very disturbing. So this is one reason why I joined this course. We can try to understand why they are now, because people from Nepal, they were Indian Army, we have Gurkhas and all.
Correct.
There's
Correct.
so many generations, but this is a very disturbing trend. Maybe society has changed over time. There are so many changes. That's why their behavior has also changed. Maybe they have got more. They've got a lot of aspiration. They want to. Indian society has changed. So, likewise, the Nepal society is also. They are also saying why. They are also not wrong. They also, everybody wants to make a quick money. Like India, everybody's like making by using different means. So maybe due to interaction of this Indian and this Nepali culture, we are seeing recent trends in this.
So Ranjit, one of the factors could be. When you are saying that they have been there for a very long time, they don't consider themselves to be Nepalis. They are actually considering themselves an Indian. And it's like, when the child considers himself as grown up to be a part of the family, he takes liberties. Now that liberty could be a good liberty or a bad liberty. So it's like, when we have a law and order or a crime thing, we won't say that an Indian is doing a crime. We will take it as a crime. But when a migrant, we still in our mind somewhere look at that person as a migrant, whereas that person is looking himself or herself as a local. So it's like the child growing up. So when the child is growing up, he will take those liberties with the parents. He has used the 4-letter word. Now, has he become deviant? No. I think how we perceive. So that could also be a way things happen. And then, then how the narration goes on. It's a complicated negotiation, as I said.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Abhay. Thank you for sharing your perspective. You are able to whatever is taking problems we are facing on the ground. You are able to connect through your.
Understand.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Sada.
No, I just thought this is the upcoming area across the globe, securitization of migration. And these concepts are very much useful in that context. And K. Ranjit has already mentioned how things are changing, perception changing, aspiration changing. I think also the kind of, any crime happened, how you perceive them. Same crime happened, done by a migrant, we perceive differently.
Correct.
We perceive different ethnic community. They do same, crime, we perceive differently. That is what happening. In America, it is easy to blame Indians, Chinese, than the white man. In India, same thing happening with particular ethnic group.
True.
So Nepalese also, maybe that kind of way.
True.
Otherwise, I think crime is increasing in every society because of aspiration and all.
True.
So also the crime is becoming transnational. You see more cross-border crimes are increasing. So okay, we'll stop here and thank you, Abha, for this very informative, exciting talk which generated questions. I will stop here and will look forward to your talk in next class.
Okay.